Welcome to FindMeaningHere.com, where the best of theology meets the latest research in the arts and sciences.
Hi, my name is Scott Alexander, and I'm director of the Doctor of Ministry program at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. If you've made it this far, you've seen two videos. One is a video about the genesis of the famous sports rivalry between Adidas and Puma. The other is a story out of the gospel tradition about Jesus and the Syrophoenician woman. Let's talk about that first story for a minute. This is a story about two brothers who originally worked for their father in a factory that makes shoes, and largely athletic shoes. When their father dies, few things happen in their lives that eventually set themselves at each other's throat. But this story of two brothers at each other's throat grows much bigger than that. They each found two companies, and the two companies are such bitter rivals that the entire town is split in two and set at odds with each other. One side of the Auroch River is basically Adidas town. The other side of the Auroch River is basically Puma town, and never the two shall meet. People who work for Adidas only go to Adidas churches. They only go to Adidas bars. They only go to the Adidas bank. And you know what? No Adidas person ever marries a Puma person, just Adidas people. Same thing with the Puma people. They only go to Puma establishments and would never hear of it if their son or daughter thought of marrying an Adidas person. This is about in-groups and out-groups. This is about a dynamic that neuroscientists like to call us-theming. How we put ourselves in groups with folks that are like us, in groups that make us feel comfortable and at home. But when we do that, there's always those other groups that don't make us feel comfortable. There's always a them for our us. Now let's talk about the story from the gospel tradition. Jesus is journeying way outside his comfort zone. He's basically in pagan territory as a Jew. And he's suddenly in the minority. So, like anybody journeying outside their cultural comfort zone, he's a little on edge, even if he doesn't realize it himself fully and consciously. But eventually he gets to the house of a fellow Jew. And so he's going to relax a little bit more. And some of these other Jews from the area are coming to him because they want the gifts he has to offer. They want some kind of healing or some word of wisdom. And just as Jesus is settling into sharing his gifts with all the people like him, all the us's around him, here comes a them, a pagan woman who inserts herself into this comfort us zone out of the them zone and asks Jesus for the same thing that his fellow Jews are asking him for. When she asks him for this favor, he lashes out at her. He calls her a little dog. And do you know why Jesus lashes out at her? It's because he has a human brain. Our brains are wired, hardwired, some would say, from hundreds of thousands of years of evolution for this us-theming process, for grouping ourselves into groups, into communities in which we feel comfortable, and getting really nervous, sometimes really angry, sometimes feeling disgust for people who are from groups other than our own, especially a group that we might be a rival with. Jesus lashes out at her. He calls her a little dog. But what does the woman do? The woman holds up a mirror to Jesus' behavior. Instead of fighting him on this, she says, "Yeah, Jesus, but even the dogs eat the scraps from the children's table." And immediately he recognizes what he's done. He doesn't treat her with the dignity she deserves. He doesn't treat her like a fellow human being. He treats her as a them, a them that's unworthy of the same respect, doesn't have the same dignity as one of us. And in so doing, he actually goes against what he's been preaching and teaching so many people about how we should interact with one another despite our differences. And he does a 180. He does the right thing and he heals the woman's daughter.
Now, I'm not saying he's sinning. More on that later in the course.
If you're interested in this us-them dynamic and how it intersects with theology, spirituality, faith commitment, or simply a commitment to make the world a better place for all of us to live in, then I would like to invite you to take my course, Theology, Conflict, and the Human Brain. It's a course in 5 modules, and it focuses on what I like to call fusion theology. And what's fusion theology? It's when the best of science, in this case the best of neuroscience, meets the best of theology. Now let me explain the 5 different modules of this course. The first module is entitled, Why Do We Have a Brain Anyway? In this module, we consider what brains are actually for. The second module is entitled, What is us-theming? In this module, we'll explore what neuroscience teaches us about the mechanics and inner workings of this evolutionarily based process of how we group ourselves into in-groups and out-groups, sometimes groups that are really hostile to each other. The third module is, can we avoid us-theming? Are we trapped in this? Or is there a way that we can make things better?
Nice.
The fourth module is entitled, A Theology of Us-theming. If we consider this dynamic in human history and human behavior, what does it teach us about theology, and what does theology teach us about this dynamic? And then finally, the fifth module, From Conflict to Cooperation. How can we take some of the things we've learned in the previous 4 modules and translate them into practical steps to make the world a better place? I hope you'll join me in the course, and I especially hope you'll be there for a live webinar at the end of the course so that we'll have a chance to meet each other in real time. Thank you so much.